Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to go over how we could combine different sheets within the same Excel file that have similar types of information, but maybe laid out slightly differently. So here what we have is just some dummy name, address, and state information. So tab A is name, address, state. Tab B is name, state, address. And tab C has address, name, state, and also an additional um, zip code field as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to start by opening up Alteryx. And here what we're actually going to do is talk about another input feature, which is a list of sheet names. So I'm going to start by going ahead and dragging an input data tool onto my canvas. I'm just going to make this canvas a little bit bigger so we can see here. And the first thing I'm going to do is set up a connection to that data source. So I'm going to navigate to my file. My file is just called address information. And instead of selecting a specific sheet, I'm going to go ahead and click on import only the list of sheet names. I'm going to select OK. And in addition to that, I'm also going to make sure that the output file name is selected for the full path. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And what we get in our results panel here is the file path name and the sheet name. So what you'll notice here at the end of this file name here is there's 3 pikes and then list of sheet names. So whenever you're bringing in an Excel file into Alteryx, the 3 pikes are kind of the break between the actual file name and the specific sheet that the data is contained on. So now what we want to do is we want to replace this list of sheet names with the specific sheet. So I'm going to do that by using a formula tool. So I'm going to go ahead and drag a formula tool onto my canvas right after the data input tool. And here I'm going to configure this so that I'm actually going to just update this file name. I'm not going to create a new column at all. I'm just going to do it right within this file name. I'm going to replace the list of sheet names here with the sheet name. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and select the column that I'm going to update, and that's file name. And I'm going to start typing replace. And then you'll see that Alteryx automatically populates the formulas for you. And if you hover over them, it will actually tell you what that specific formula does. So here I'm going to replace a string. I'm going to find the target. The target is list of sheet names. I'm going to tell it what the replacement should be, and I'm going to update my field. So the string here is going to be file name. So the string is just the column that we're looking to. And then the target is the specific string within that column. So here we're going to use a quote, and we're going to put a list of sheet names just as it was at the end of that file. So a couple things, and I'm going to get rid of target here, and a couple things to keep in mind: that your target is going to be in quotes, and that it's exactly how it is in the file name. So here we have a less than sign in the beginning and a greater than sign at the end. So we have to make sure that we pick those up. And then the replacement, we want to use the sheet names. So I'm going to go ahead and bring sheet names into my formula, going to delete replacement. And then here what you actually get is a preview of what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and show you now. Here we have the file name, we have the 3 pikes, and then just the letter A, which is exactly what we want. So I know my formula is good. I'm going to go ahead and run this again, just so we can see what we have. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make this bigger so everyone can see. So now we have our file name, and we have sheet A, B, and C. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to write a macro that's going to look at each one of these lines and pull in the specific file path. So I'm going to actually leave this workflow here. I'm going to go up, I'm going to add a new tab so I could get a blank workflow. And this is going to be where we're going to build our macro from. So anytime you want to build an additional workflow or just kind of do some scratch work on the side, you could always just add another tab by clicking this plus button here. Now for macros, we're actually going to be working with the interface tools. And the first thing we have to do when we're building a macro is bring on a control parameter. So what a control parameter is just a piece of information that's going to be fed into the macro, and then we're going to write the rest of the workflow. So here the control parameter that I want to pull in is going to be the file name, because the file name column contains all the information that I need to feed through to my data input tool, including the sheet name. So this will eventually become a dropdown when we go to connect this workflow to the very first workflow we put in. So from that perspective, under the label, I'm just going to put in select file name. So that way I know in the dropdown I have to select the file name to feed into the macro. And then after our control parameter, we're going to add an action tool. And we're not going to configure this just yet. The next thing I want to bring in is a data input tool right here. So all these are connected. And this data input tool, I do want to connect to my source file, which is my address information. And this time I do want to select a specific sheet. I want to select sheet A. It doesn't matter which sheet you select. And here I'm going to output the full path again. The data looks good. That's how the file is set up. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to configure my action tool. And here I want to update a value. And the value I want to update is this string right here, which is the file path of sheet A. So basically what this is going to do now is all three of those values from the file name are going to come in through the control parameter. This piece of string text here is going to get updated based upon the row that's coming in, and then that's going to feed this data input tool here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run this just to make sure the data is coming over okay. All right, perfect. It looks pretty good. And then after we have this here, to kind of close out this macro, we're going to go back to our interface tools, and we're going to pull down a macro output right here. So basically now, this kind of closes this macro so that all the data will come in and get output here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So we just go to File, Save As, Browse. And this will take me back to the same place where my source data is. And I'm just going to call this Excel macro. I'm going to go ahead and close this now. So now the next step is to bring this macro into my original workflow here. And the way we do that is we just find a spot, an empty spot on the canvas. We right click, we scroll down to insert. Then at the very bottom, you'll have this macro option. Go ahead and click macro. And this will take you to the macro that you just saved, or wherever you save all your macros for Alteryx. Go ahead and click open, and it'll drop this on the canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and connect it here. And this is that control parameter. So it's asking me to select a field, and I know I need to select file name right there. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this, and I do expect this to throw an error. And the reason why is because it's a common error that I think most people run into when they try to use batch macros, especially bringing data in that might not be in the same format. So anyone who's used Alteryx, as a beginner has probably come across this error many times. So I'm going to teach you how to solve for that error. And basically what this is saying is the field schema for one of the inputs changed between iterations. And all that means is that the column headers changed which they did. They're different between tab A, B, and C. And in addition to that, tab C has an additional data column. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually go back into my macro. So if I left click on the macro, you'll see there's an option down here to open macro, which I'm going to click on that. And that'll pop up a new tab with that specific macro in it. So one thing that we need to update isn't necessarily something with the configuration, but there is this interface designer panel. So if you don't see this on your screen, it's very possible that it's not selected yet. So if you go to view, make sure that interface designer is selected and it will appear. And you'll notice that there's this gearbox all the way to the left. And if I go ahead and click that, it's going to give me some options here. You could change the icon of the macro. Here I didn't do that. And then it's going to give you some additional options here. So the output fields change based on macros configuration or data input. We're going to go ahead and select that because that's true in our instance, because the column headers are different. And all iterations will have the same output schema, error if different. Well, that's not true because our column headers are different. So I'm going to select auto config by name and wait until all iterations run. So you can either do it by name or position. I know that my column headers all have like the same name. They just might be in different positions. So I'm going to go ahead and select name in this instance. So then I'm just going to click off of all that. I'm going to hit save. So it saves those changes. I'm going to go ahead and close out of my macro. And then this will bring me back to my original file. And then you'll get this pop-up menu, or this pop-up window that basically says that there was a change that was made and was refreshed. So that way I know I'm running the most current version of that macro. So now when I go ahead and hit run here, we'll see what this does. And now in my results window, I have all my name, all my address, and all my state information, as well as my zip information for those items that came over from tab C, all in one place, and I'll aggregate it. So this is very helpful when you have this similar type of data that's all within one file on different tabs, to bring that in. And again, really the trick is right here in this formula tool to bring in your list of sheet names and then replace that sheet name appropriately. And then the second kind of key of doing this is also in your macro to make sure that you're configuring the interface designer appropriately so that if you do have different column headers or one sheet contains additional fields versus the others, that it will still bring that data in and just compile that, in a way where if there is data, it would obviously show up. If it's not, it would just have a null value. So that's it for today's demonstration. The next video I'm going to do, it will talk about how to do this, but not only within the same file, but if I had multiple files that had different tab names that had similar information, how to go through this process for not just items within the same file, but to do it for multiple files. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this solves an issue with bringing in data that's contained within different sheets within an Excel file that have different schema, and also taught you a little bit about error handling and the interface designer as well. So hopefully everyone found this informative. If you did, please like and subscribe.